Thank you. Well, happy to be with you today. The case study I will be going through, the big question is about shaping, how do you shape actually the organization to deliver more inclusive innovation? So at that time I was working for a company and I was busy disclosing the use case, which is really integrated in the company about inclusiveness within the company. So I'm Nicolas Petitjean, half French, half Swedish. So my mother is Swedish, so I'm very happy to be here in Sweden. I don't speak a word in Swedish about the words my mom was telling me when yelling after me and running after me. So maybe not appropriate for the audience today. I'm former VP for Experience Design and Human-Centered Innovation at Sodexo. And I left in February, Great Resignation, to jump and create my own companies. The first one, Collective, whose aim is to do some group thinking solutions. We call it this workshops. And adaptive training, actually, also, which is more about helping innovation and design leaders grow as designers and also leaders within organizations. The second company, After Studio, the baseline tells a little bit what we are aiming to do is create better tomorrows. So we help companies on their innovation and growth programs, and actually the case study is a bit about that. So that's a little bit my background. A long story short, this is the conclusion. So what we have tried to do is to create 2 new inclusive businesses and inner flows within the company. And I will try to explain how we have done this, what it means inclusive businesses, and what it means inner flows, all right? So that was done in Sodexo. So the company has different business units. One is operating services for clients on the senior business sector. Senior business sector is taking care of senior people, all right? So the playground, all right, was about getting older. And I will go through 3 epics. I'll make the connection with the agile world that we have seen before. So I've done 3 epics, 3 things that for me were absolutely necessary and useful to actually move forward within those projects, right? So humanity is getting older. In terms of volume, it's massive. In terms also in culture and value, actually, our dominant class, I would say the one that are taking decisions for us, are quite older, actually. So, and they will be going retired, and then after will be going dependent in a certain way. What interests me today is essentially the volumes. I mean, we moved from 1 to 2 billions by 2050 in terms of number of people, all right? It's massive, all right? It's really massive. And actually, taking care of older people needs will skyrocket, all right? While in the same time, active people to make it happen will really shrink. I mean, and this creates tension in countries. I know the case study was in France, but can apply in different countries because it affects the politics, actually. It doesn't only affect the companies are operating, it affects also the politics on countries. How do you actually address that? How do you take care of all the people? All right, so there's a lot of things to do around that. More simple, Sodexo was operating in a specific environment, and when you start getting older, you start to be dependent, around 75 to 80, let's say. When you're getting older, for sure, this cost, this burden for society increases. And usually, you might be sitting on those places 1 a day. Maybe, maybe not, I hope. But the business model for companies like Sodexo that operate services for B2B companies, which is companies operating facilities where people are living, having good time, services are pulled to them. So healthcare services, entertainment services, healthcare, food services. Sodexo was providing food for those facilities. This is a real captive business, actually, like airports, actually. You have the people there. They're not too much moving from that place, usually. Not so fast, at least. But they are there. They're having good time. We're taking care of them. And actually, there's not only way to address that, all right? On a B2B environment, yes, but actually there's a lot of other solutions. Beguinage, living and sharing, houses, family receptions, temporary receptions, a lot of different ways to actually improve the way we're taking care of our elders. Those solutions are way more inclusive and way more B2C. So when you're a company operating on B2B environment, you have to actually repurpose your strategy. Rethink about how do you actually go into that direction. And this is where the project started, all right? So the project started with the first epic. So I put the things here, a word, big picture, because it was the topic about the epic, And the starting point, July 19, we have a wrong start actually. We have done a 2 days workshop with the core team and executives or senior leaders working on this project. And the classical thing, we have done a 2 days workshop and we're already solutioning at the end of the 2 days. We're already solution and trying to find solutions after 2 days. It was not the right answer actually. We have to move in a different way. And it shows something that I find interesting, this kind of keyhole vision, where we're looking on serving consumers within client facilities. And even during those 2 days, we're trying to find solutions for those same people. We're not trying to see the big picture behind the project. Those guys, for sure. Well, actually, you have this kind of thing, this tunnel vision, on a lot of companies on different areas, and this impacts actually the way you innovate. You can find the same thing on sustainability transition. You can consider carbon emission as a key thing to understand, and it's absolutely necessary. But actually, addressing this topic is way more complex than just addressing carbon emissions. And it's exactly the same thing for Sodexo within the service business, the senior service business. So thanks to one of your partners, actually, System Innovation, we've been using tools after these 2 days workshop, wrong start, blah, blah, blah. And we have done a couple of sessions with them to work on a better understanding of what is the topic they have to address, what are the leverage points, what are the systems, the ecosystem actually, what are the mindset to be more system thinkers. Once we have done that, there was a second question around the big picture. Usually firms tend to be considering themselves as in the middle of something, all right? Well, actually, and I like the graphic from Economics of Mutuality, the company is part of the system, is not only the only thing. And when we bring this conclusion to the group, there was a kind of missing hole in the middle there. The missing thing was the purpose. Why, in a certain way, what we have to do together, actually, if we consider ourselves as a part of a system, what we have to achieve. So we work together in a purpose for the group for a specific innovation project. So it shows a little bit also the way you move into the right direction. And we ended up with this kind of ecosystem approach with actors, touchpoints, organizations around getting older and independent. And interesting, though, is that the red dots that you're seeing here were places where the company, Sodexo, was also operating in other business units, other silos, right? So all of a sudden shows that actually, if we want to move forward in our topic, we have to actually embed the organization in a different way. And this brings the second epic, true people experience. I'm absolutely convinced that actually, when you're doing your stuff in companies, as I was doing actually, usually you speak about consumers, very conceptual, very immaterial thing. You don't put a real thing around that. And the people involved in the project that has this understanding of the entire ecosystem now has to understand who are the people they have to consider, right? So this is, for me, true people. You have to bring those guys, and this is what we have done. We have brought the core team and the senior leaders involved in the project to meet, actually, the entire ecosystem, the stakeholders around that. So, for sure, personal, family caregivers, like your parents, you're taking care of your parents, so meeting those persons. Professional caregivers also, that are affected by this situation. And for sure also, people that are going on through those specific moments of getting dependent. I mean, a husband or a spouse, his counterpart is getting dependent. How do you cope with that, all right? So truly feeling what it means to be dependent was for me absolutely necessary for them to understand truly the ecosystem. And I put here a video about another project that shows this kind of true people thing. This is happening in Brazil, in a remote site. We're operating research around food for people working on remote sites. And this Brazilian guy was serving food. You will see the amount is quite huge, actually. It's quite huge. He was eating everything. Huh? We spent some time with him. And actually, he's just improving the way, optimizing the way he's utilizing the benefits of the company is giving to him, all right? In one part, he's eating all this plate. It's the only meal he has for the day. So he can keep the money he gets from his salary to pay education, food, entertainment for the whole family. So, it's a way to actually address your quality of life. So this, for me, was very interesting, and you can only observe that. You can do a lot of quantitative research on consumers. You will never see that. This is a specific point. It just informs the way you have to create new services. It doesn't say that you have to create services only for this guy, but it shows some tensions that are interesting to address. And there's come the third epic for me. Once you have done your stuff on the picture, you have done your understanding of the problem for your users and the users, or the people, the true people, then you move into the operating system of the company, all right? And you might face, when you're doing some innovation, this kind of things, org charts, all right? So the red boxes that you're seeing here corresponds to the dots you see on the ecosystem mapping. So people that we have to put in the project were spread around the company in different layers of the sandwich. So we have to onboard them in some ways. So what we have done is we have created a web of influence, a kind of political organization inside to actually influence the leaders or even the employees to get part of the product. So it was a lot of influential work to actually have the people invested on this project and engaged. And it was actually very hard. The second tool that you find on an operating system for a company is the mega processes. I've been in charge of mega processes. I have 2 actually on those ones. And it's done for purpose for efficiency. That's for sure. When you're doing innovation, actually you're going on the boxes, not necessarily in the same way. Same principle with the graphics, so love it. So the process is iterative. And actually, honestly, for the last 3 years, we've been through such amount of changes and a lot of different things to adapt. Even during the project, we have to remove from physical meetings to 100% remote meetings and connections and keep moving the project. Actually, this for me is the new black, the adaptive pattern. So for me, finding new ways of defining processes because you need to some structure, we should think about adaptive processes, or I don't know if we call this processes, but we have to find a way to actually refine this because the 95% of processes that rules the world today might not be the right one for the next 10 years or 20 years or whatever. So that was for me a good learning. What we try to do for this operating system, we have created this ecosystem to work, actually. We have the core team in the middle, then you have the bubbles where different business units, leadership members, and we have other actors from the company. So the core team was operating in a tight rhythm, structure frameworks around innovation, and also strong T-shapes. They were very professional, very experts in some areas, with a wide spectrum of understanding in dependency, in processes within the company, in influencing other parts of the organization. So we have this kind of A-team group, and then we have a loose leadership between a couple of leaders to actually help navigate through the organization, the wide organization, influence to have the good means, and moving forward the project. So this was a little bit the way we organize the project and the teams to deliver. What's interesting is, in a certain way, we just mirror the ecosystem we're trying to address, simply trying to mirror that. So we ended up, actually, to mention the words about the 2 ventures we created that were inclusive. Actually, that's okay. We created 2 new businesses that were not related to the older people getting dependent. We have highlighted 2 businesses on those 2 other big dots here. The first one was for professional caregivers that are not well paid, they're not considered, and the turnover for companies is super high. So actually, how you can provide something to them to help them grow as individuals in their career and ensure they have a better life, a better quality of life. So this was part of the outcome of one of those ventures. And if you remember the tension between the less people to make it happen, it's really in this area. The second red bubble, the second venture, the second business, was about family caregivers. Myself, maybe you on the room here, have older parents getting dependent, falling dependency. This is a super stressful moment. There's a lot of admin tasks to do. There's a lot of burden also from mental pressure, feeling of guiltiness also. And you don't leave this in the front door of your office. You come with that on your side, all right? And this affects your quality of life at work. It affects somehow your productivity. It affects your mood. It affects a lot of things, what you're doing on your work. So HR people and companies should consider to have services and benefits, at least for your employees, to address that. Because actually, the population is growing while shrinking on the other side. So this is what we have tried to do during this innovation program. So last word, foster organized networks within your company, whatever the form it takes to make it more adaptive. That's it for me. Thank you.